Good evening. I'm calling to order this regular school board meeting of the Washington Township Board of Education. It is Wednesday, December 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And it is our custom at the first meeting of each month to read aloud our new mission statement. I'm going to have Mrs. Horth Kruger do that.
The mission of Washington Township Schools is to nurture our students into tomorrow's leaders by cultivating environments that ignite innovation, amplify diverse and critical thinking, and inspire growth and achievement.
Thank you. Those of you who have been here before may be used to seeing it up there on the wall, but since we have a fresh new mission since our new strategic plan this year, we are still getting that replaced, but I'm very happy to have that new wording. Moving on to our agenda. First up is board recognitions. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you. Dr. Taylor, President Fry, as we know, there's always so many things to celebrate here in Washington Township, and we have a great slate of recognitions this evening. I'd like to start by inviting Kennedy Brookins Genesee and Tiaria Donaldson, if you're here, to come and take a spot up by Dr. Taylor, if you would, please. On Friday, November 7th, student artists from Simon Youth Academies nationwide were welcomed to the Phoenix Theater Cultural Center in Indianapolis for the Simon Youth Foundation Student Artist Exhibition. This event provided students an opportunity to share artwork inspired by their personal experiences and creative perspectives. Kennedy Brookins Genesee, a senior at True North Academy, was among this year's featured artists. She credits her father, the original family artist, for inspiring her early interest in drawing, sharing that he taught her to see the world through an artist's eyes, full of color, emotion, and endless possibility. Another True North senior, Tiaria Donaldson, also showcased her impressive work. It was a wonderful evening celebrating the talent, vision, and stories of Simon Youth Academy student artists from across the country. And congratulations again to both ladies.
Congratulations, and you look lovely tonight.
Dr. Taylor?
Dr. Taylor.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Continuing at this time, I would like to ask Kayla Rivas Pineda, if you are here, if you would join Dr. Taylor up front. We also wanted to highlight a fantastic article co-written by one of our modern apprenticeship program students, North Central senior, Kayla Rivas Pineda, who currently serves as a marketing coordinator apprentice with the Indy Chamber. Her piece, published on Life in Indy, is an insider guide to the best ice cream shops around Indianapolis. Yeah, I know, right? Kayla partnered with colleague Nevo to explore local parlors, sample creative flavors, and share the stories behind each business. This article is a wonderful example of her strong writing skills, marketing insight, and genuine passion for the local community. As a Washington Township student, Kayla continues to make us incredibly proud. Her professionalism, creativity, and dedication reflect the very best of our MAP program, and we deeply appreciate her efforts and the positive impact she is making through her work. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Which one was your favorite? Perfect. I'm going.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Isaac Rabuck, Thomas Rude, Avery Walker, and Yassine Hamdouchi up to stand next to Dr. Taylor, please. The Rising Stars of Indiana program is a non-competitive recognition initiative designed to honor high school juniors for their academic achievement. By identifying outstanding scholars during their junior year, the program aims to increase their visibility for future scholarship opportunities. Each recognized student is included in a statewide published list of Rising Stars of Indiana and receives an award certificate. Each Indiana high school may submit up to 4 students for the class of 2027. This year, the following North Central High School juniors have been selected for this honor and will be recognized at Recognition Night on April 13th, 2026. Congratulations to these outstanding students on this well-deserved recognition. Finally, this evening, I would like to invite Mr. Tom Hakeem to come and stand next to Dr. Taylor to be recognized. The Indiana Association of School Principals is proud to support all Indiana school administrators and acknowledges the tremendous effort required to educate students, support staff, and respond to the evolving needs of our communities. IASP annually recognizes outstanding school leaders in each of the 12 Indiana districts who have demonstrated exceptional commitment to providing high-quality learning opportunities for students. These principals are honored by their peers for their exemplary contributions they have made to the profession. Congratulations to Northview Middle School Principal Mr. Tom Hakeem, who was named the IASP Middle School Principal of the Year on November 23rd. That's right. This prestigious honor reflects his exceptional leadership, unwavering dedication, and the positive impact he has on students, staff, and the entire Northview community. We are incredibly proud to have Mr. Hakeem represent Washington Township Schools, and we celebrate this well-deserved recognition of his commitment to excellence in education. Nice job, Tom.
I'd never see you around here.
Oh, nice try, buddy. Oh, yeah. I know, you got orchestra. Got to go. President Fry, that concludes our recognitions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Moving on to the next agenda item. It is our school spotlight, and up this month is a school near and dear to my heart, Westlake Middle School. Mr. Pitcock, come join us. Auntie. Thank you. Aunties.
President Fry, Dr. Taylor, members of the board, thank you for having our spotlight today for Westlake Middle School. We're going to talk a lot about some good celebrations, and we've got some great people to recognize right afterwards. So we'll start off with our celebrations. So for staff, we've had, what I always say, it's part of convention season. So we've had quite a few conventions through here. AMLE came through here, IASP. We had several staff members who were presenting in that, and that's some of their first, sometimes first presenters, sometimes second, third, but everybody did a great job on those. Mrs. Hampton was honored at the Center for Leadership and Development. She's actually not here tonight because she's at a conference in Chicago. And then Carrie Jones, who is here tonight, was nominated for an Excellence Award and nomination for Lifetime Educator Excellence. So she's awesome. So also, several members of our band and orchestra were named to the All-Region Band and Orchestra Ensembles that took place a couple weeks ago. And then we did find out just before we submitted this that Colin Herring was named a Junior All-State Band for tuba. And so that's a pretty big deal. And then our dance and cheerleading team performed prior to a Pacer game. They did much better than the Pacers that evening. But they did a really nice job, and it was really cool. And then I think we shared Dr. Taylor the presentation or the video with you. So for our school community, our school partners, PTO, and staff have contributed again. Whenever we ask the West Lane community for parents in need and families in need, they step up to the plate. And so that we're in the middle of that again, but and once again, it's shown what a caring community West Lane is to be able to help take care of our own and those that have needs. And also too, from an academic perspective, our year one of the dual language immersion program has made the transition up to sixth grade, and that's going pretty well. And I think a couple kids here are in that as well, so they would agree. I want to talk now about our school board spotlight focus for achievement for all. We had a really good 24-25 school year as far as iLearn scores and attendance went. First of our ELA scores were up almost 6% from iLearn 24. Our math scores were up 4%, and our science scores were up 14%. Actually, we say 15%, we rounded up to nearly 40% of our sixth graders are passing iLearn, and I know Miss Monroe and Miss Fields are like, well, this year it's going to be 50. So I'm holding them to it. So we're excited for that. Also, our attendance was up from to 96%. That was up almost a full percentage point from the year before. And we're keep pushing the kids to be here every single day. For as far as our data challenges, we still want to make sure we want to move the needle for our vulnerable learners. Our SPED and ENL scores have risen minimally. So we're really looking for ways to get them to their scores to rise. And then our seventh grade scores last year, our sixth and eighth were up significantly, but our seventh kind of were either flat or just a little slightly off. And so we're trying to figure out working on that this year. And we also want to do a better job of our attendance outreach with our Hispanic families. That's been something that they dipped quite a bit last winter. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again this year. Some of our promising practices already, we've increased our academic discussions in classes. And we've also tried to have writing across all subject areas. And we've tried to mirror what's happening in sixth grade science. And one of the things they do is they do the note-taking process, but they go back to it constantly to kind of tamp down that arc of forgetting and to make practice more permanent and make the information more permanent to all of our students. All right, now it's the fun time here, special recognitions. I'm going to let Miss Barbara lead off with our portraits of a panther.
Please have Nia Clayton, Monty Gray Bay. Please go up to Dr. Taylor. I think I have the best job tonight that I get to introduce you all to Amani Gray Bay and Nia Clayton. These two are just the epitome of a panther. Both Amani and Nia represent an ideal, and it almost makes me emotional, ideal and unique portrait of a panther and the power in Best Buddies. Both Amani and Nia are leaders in the school. They take part in multiple clubs, music, and sports. They excel as leaders in their classrooms. As the leaders of Best Buddies, they seek to create a welcoming environment for all students, regardless of disability. They fulfill the mission of Best Buddies to its fullest, ensuring that all students have meaningful friendships and support. And if you ever need a smile or a welcome, Monty is your girl. Congratulations, and we are so glad they're Wildcat.
Congratulations and thank you for everything you do. Great job.
All right, our next up is Above and Beyond Parent Recognition, and that is Taryn Greaser. Come on up to Dr. Taylor. All right, so we've done the math. Taryn's been at Wesleyan for 8 of the last 9 years, probably longer than some staff members. So she started with Ethan, who's an NC grad and a current Purdue student. I'm going to put that in there. Then Lex, who's an NC senior this year, and Jamie, who's a current 8th grader. She's been heavily involved in our PTO 3 separate times. She has served as either PTO president or co-president. And then when she's not leading the PTO, she's either volunteering or she's training the next PTO president. It is truly an honor to recognize her as an above and beyond parent. So thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.
All right, can I have Mr. Hampton and Elijah please come on up? Apologize. Mr. Hampton,
Simmons.
Mr. Simmons, and is Mr. Garland, are you here? Yes, outstanding. So for the last several years, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity after-school program, Omega Lamplighters, have provided valuable mentoring and service learning for our young men at Wesleyan, as well as Christmas contributions to all of our families. In addition, in the last 2 years, Omega Psi Phi fraternity, in conjunction with Project Give Back, have worked with our social worker, Kristen Jones, and assistant principal, Shanna Hampton, in providing Thanksgiving meals to over 200 families. With their continued support and commitment, they have made the Wesleyan community a kinder, more caring space by helping meet the basic needs of our families. Omega Psi Phi is represented this evening by Antonio Hampton, Anthony Simmons, and Project Give Back is represented by James Garland. Can we give those all a round of applause?
Thank you so much. Thank you. For all that you do. We miss you, Brenda, very much.
Appreciate
There you go. Perfect.
I'd like to finish talking about the Washington Township Schools Foundation partnership. We've used almost $10,000 in school supplies in our classrooms last year, and 11 staff members have taken dollar for dollar donors choose grants and projects valued at about $8,000. And we also received 5 focus grants last year for about $5,700, with several combined middle school grants that total $17,000. We also continue to support our Science Fest each year that we hold right after the Great North Run, and it's a great time for our feeders to come in and do some science with it. Outstanding. We've already received 2 grants this year, total $4,000. All right, so thank you for letting us shine our spotlight on our school tonight, and we appreciate you, your support. And we also, too, I want to say something. Three board members were at our schools last week, teaching our sixth grade civics on how to, or sixth grade students in the civic standards on how to run for and then vote for a school board election. So I want to appreciate all you guys for that, too. So thank you very much.
Wait, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Mr. Hickok, can't leave yet.
Before every Panther, every day.
Every Wildcat every day. But now they're connected, challenged, and celebrated because we just moved it over to that. So they also get better every day, too. Not going to lie. So.
Had to hear that. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is our superintendent's announcements. Dr. Taylor.
Yes, thank you, President Fry. Good evening, community. Happy holidays to everyone. A few announcements are this morning. So you have there linked for your review is the draft July 26 through June 27 board meeting schedule. So any final feedback for our consideration as we draft that and move toward action on that schedule for January, please send that to Ms. Wilson and I. We also have attached there your biannual legal review. And so that update there is reflective of all current and closed legal matters impacting the district over the past 6 months. So take a look at that when your schedule allows. Also, always, anytime I get invited to events, I like to include the board on these events. I was invited to the Spring Mill Winter Light Showcase this Friday morning. So I have an attached flyer there for you. I'm looking forward to seeing this event, which is a musical celebration based on Anna Gross-Nickel-Hein's book, Winter Lights. So I'm really excited for that musical performance there at Spring Mill. Multiple grade levels involved in that. And then we have a notable alumni recognition. David Logan from the North Central class of 2001 was recently recognized as a member of the 2026 Men's Silver Anniversary team as recognized by the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. He's to be honored in March, so I wanted to make the board aware of that. And then a final recognition, Kahoot wrote a blog post about our Allisonville Elementary School teacher, Mr. Stephen Auslander, and his facilitation of the Kahoot Cup for 2025, an event that brings together now 8,000 students across 76 different countries. It's so remarkable to see how this event has grown in the last decade. And you have to know that Mr. A started all of this. So there's a nice little write-up on that effort and that engagement. And so shout out to Mr. A there at Allisonville. And that concludes my superintendent announcements this evening.
All right, the next item on the agenda would be comments from the public. We did not have anyone sign in as intending to make a comment tonight, but if anyone is here would like to address the board, we welcome you to step up to the podium at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll close that item and move on to approval of the consent agenda. Dr. Kaiser.
Thank you, President Fry and members of the board. I recommend that you approve the consent agenda for this meeting. This consent agenda includes approval of minutes of the November 12th, 2025 regular meeting and the memorandum of the November 12th, 2025 executive session, approval of 5 payroll calculation summary reports, a claims docket in the amount of $13,574,795.54, a special personnel item in accordance with Indiana Code 20-26-5-11.2, a human resources report containing classified personnel with 16 new hires, numbers 177 to 192, 18 resignations, numbers 68 to 85, and 2 leaves, numbers 25 and 26. For certified personnel, there is 1 new appointment, number 106, 3 resignations, numbers 23 through 25, and 1 maternity, child rearing, or adoptive leave, number 10. There are 2 non-competitive grants, gifts, or donations to present for board approval. The FFY 2025 Title 2A grant in the amount of $430,040.85, and the FFY 2025 Title IV-A grant in the amount of $209,720.14. And information has been provided in your board packet for review.
Board, any questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Yes, Mr. Thompson.
Are these like title, all these letter grants, like federal grants?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
It's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Any abstentions? The ayes have it, 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Our action items tonight, Mr. Boots is up first with capital construction project change orders.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Dr. Taylor and members of the board. I do have I have 3 change orders to present for approval this evening. First is change order number 003 to Skillman Davis Joint Venture for the Washington Township Services Center. Change order number 012 to Shield Sexton Harmon Joint Venture for Nora Elementary Project. And change order number 009 to Shield Sexton Harmon for the Fox Hill Elementary Project. The total financial impact of these is a decrease of $253,879, and that money will go back into the capital referendum account. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Questions, board? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the 2016-2020 capital construction project change orders as presented by Mr. Boots.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. No abstentions. Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to Dr. Kaiser for a policy second reading.
Yes.
Oh, I am so sorry. I went ahead and skipped one. Action item number 2 is approval of board resolution authorizing enforcement of zoning.
Thank you, President Fry, members of the board. I do come this evening seeking your approval of a resolution authorizing enforcement of zoning commitments. I know the board is well aware of this, but I thought I'd provide a brief resolution summary for those members of the public who may not be as familiar. The district joined the Highland Kessler Civic League, as well as over 500 individuals, the Crooked Creek Land Use Neighborhood Organization, the International School of Indiana, the Metropolitan School District of Pike Township, the Pike Township Trustee, 4 members of the Indiana House of Representatives, 2 Indiana state senators, and 11 city county council members being opposed to Paramount's zoning petition back in 2024 for several reasons. One was non-compliance with zoning and developmental standards. Specifically, their proposal did not align with the city-county zoning plan or responsible development expectations. Second, that there was a lack of transparency and significant community opposition. The project was advanced without adequate transparency, generating substantial and justified local opposition. And then third, safety concerns resulting from an increased intensity of use. The proposed use of the property materially increased traffic and safety risks for students in the surrounding neighborhood. The district also formally raised concerns about the elevated risk of closure associated with the new Paramount Charter School. Historically, the average lifespan of charter schools in Marion County is short, and more than 1/3 ultimately fail. School closures inflict significant emotional distress on students and families, and they also disrupt long-term learning. Additionally, the opening of another new charter school deepens the already documented oversaturation of schools in Indianapolis. Despite these concerns that we raised back in March of 2024, the Metropolitan Development Commission approved the petition based solely on Paramount's public commitments to implement required conditions. These commitments included several measures designed to protect student health and safety, including the requirement to connect their facility to sanitary sewer services. Importantly, Paramount's commitments expressly authorized both the district and the Highland Kessler Civic League to enforce them. As permitted under Indiana Code, the district is now pursuing legal action because Paramount has failed to uphold the commitments it made this community. These are not optional improvements. They are obligations Paramount agreed to abide by in order to receive this zoning approval. The district firmly believes that Paramount should be held accountable for meeting the original commitments it made, commitments that were designed to ensure transparency, protect student safety, and maintain trust with the community that we all collectively serve. This concludes my presentation of the resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Questions, board? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the board resolution authorizing enforcement of zoning commitments as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying no. Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is still Dr. Kaiser.
Thank
Now
you.
we get to our board policy.
Thank you. President Fry, I also come to you and the board seeking approval of a second reading to remove board policy G125, criminal organization activity. As you may recollect from when we presented this for first reading, the removal was recommended by our partners at Churchill and Antrim because it's no longer required under Indiana Code and the elements of the policy are covered under our student code of conduct. So happy to answer any questions about the removal of board policy G125, criminal organization activity.
Board, any questions? Obviously, this is the second reading, so we did see this in the last meeting, but seeing no questions, I have a motion.
I move that we approve the second reading of the removal of board policy G125, criminal organization activity as presented by Dr. Kaiser.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed indicate by saying no. Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. And moving on to HR with Dr. Whitman. Action item number 4, extension of additional IA pay for when serving as a substitute.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, President Fry, members of the board. I come to you tonight seeking approval of an extension of the additional instructional assistant pay when required to serve as a substitute teacher. So following the approval in September of 2022 to provide an additional $2 per hour for instructional assistants when required by school administrators to serve as classroom substitutes, I'm formally requesting the board to extend this compensation practice through this current year. At the end of this year, we will review whether or not that practice should continue beyond the 25-26 school year. As outlined in your original memorandum, the compensation is limited to those instances in which an IA is required to serve in place of a teacher or substitute and assumes those primary responsibilities for classroom instruction and supervision. Extending this practice for the additional school years has supported and will continue to support our ongoing need for reliable coverage while maintaining equitable compensation for IAs who are asked to assume these duties. Are there any questions?
Yes, Ms. Forth-Kruger.
I'm just curious. I have no problem with this, but how can it, do you have any numbers in terms of how often this happens that someone is asked to come in and assume that role?
Yeah, I did not bring those total numbers. It obviously was much higher during COVID and right after COVID. We really had a hard time finding subs. It has diminished over the years. So that piece of information I can provide to you, which is why we want to reevaluate how much longer we might consider doing this. I know principals always look as a priority to fill those open positions with teachers through the substitute system program that we use with Kelly Services. When that does not work, they want to make sure that they've got familiar faces in those classrooms with students. So I'm happy to get you specific numbers moving forward.
No, that's fine. I just was curious. Knowing that it's diminishing is fine, but again, I have no problem with, I was just curious.
Like I said, principals will always try to first fill those positions with substitutes first that come from Kelly Services in our allocation for Kelly services that we have for each building. And then when necessary, we use this as a next resort.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Similar question. So what are the like difference in requirements for IAs versus, because are they, my understanding is they're about the same, right? For Kelly subs versus like.
Yes. Yes. Many of our IAs, I will share with you, many of our IAs do have emergency permits in place. So that's always a plus when we have that. And some of our IAs are actually working towards getting licensed status.
And then I guess this is kind of towards your question, but it says financial impact 0, but there's some kind of financial impact, right?
Well, we're currently using it. It's not something that we are adding above and beyond what we've already practiced. Part of our goal with this, when we went back to the 2022 memo, we wanted to make sure that the language in that memo was not exclusive of what our current application is. So for the perspective, from the perspective of auditors who are looking at our documentation, we want to make sure that the board still approves our continued practice like this.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir.
So this is more of a clarification for me. So my understanding is this is to extend it through 25, 26. But when I read the actual document, it sounds like the way it's written is that extending this compensation practice for a defined period, but it covers previous years.
It does,
Is that
because
the way it's?
your last action was in 2022.
Right. But
and
this is just for this coming year, the year we're in.
We wanted to make sure when I consulted with Ms. Smith about this for the purposes of the auditor, she said it would be her recommendation that we were inclusive of any date between when your last board action happened in 2022 to this year, when we will continue the practice through this year and then reevaluate it. She wanted to make sure that we were inclusive of all of those dates.
Okay, so I'm agreeing with what we're trying to do. I'm
Yes.
just trying to get the wording because it says extend this compensation practice and then it has previous years. That word extend is what's throwing me off.
Ideally, when we did the memo in 2022,
Should have done it then.
we would not have made it for just it. The way it reads, it could be interpreted that it was only that year.
Sure.
And it's clearly not been used for just that year. We've continued to do it. So we wanted to make sure this board, for the purposes of agreement, would agree to have continued that practice despite the wording.
And since it's kind of a retro.
It's a cleanup.
Okay.
That's a fair way to look at it. It's a cleanup. We wanted to make sure we were being deliberate in extending it through right now. All good questions.
I want to also clarify too, sometimes it can be mistaken that instructional assistants cover like for the entire day. And I think at the secondary level, especially, we start with Kelly services to find our substitute teachers. And then we go to our teachers to say, hey, I need period 6 and period 7 filled. And when some of our teachers are on prep periods during that time, they will cover. And then the event where we have holes still in those secondary spaces, you're covering maybe sometimes a period or two, not necessarily a full day. Certainly that's different in elementary, but elementary, we have different variations of instructional assistance, whereas in secondary, it's more heavily special education. In elementary, you have Title I instructional assistants, you have kindergarten instructional assistants, and special education instructional assistants. So I just wanted to make sure you understood the context of that as well, in terms of how much utilization that consists of.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the extension of additional instruction assistance pay when required to serve as a substitute, as presented by Dr. Whitney.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed indicate by saying no. And the ayes have it 5-0. Thank you very much, Dr. Whitman. And you have another, I believe you could be classified as clean item for us.
Actually, this one is just a maintenance item more than anyone else. Are we
I
doing
skipped
the
ahead again,
administrator
actually.
fringe?
I was looking at number 6.
You are just trying to
what is
plow
up
through
with
this
me?
meeting. Wow. All right. So this one's more of a annual touch to make sure we're keeping our language clean. So, President Fry, Dr. Taylor, members of the board, For your review and approval, I'm presenting the revised Administrator Fringe Benefits documents for the 25-26 school year. As part of our annual review and update cycle, the Human Resources Department has identified several areas to revise on this document for accuracy, clarity, and continued alignment with current practices. Those 3 items, first of all, is the first one to remove a clause that would provide the opportunity for a title change for somebody who has a superintendent's license, that they would go for a director position up to a superintendent's license or superintendent's title, because we have established with this past year the structure of what that looks like. The second item is clarification on level 3 insurance contribution languages. We are not changing the contributions at all. That's already been locked, but we thought that language was muddy and sometimes created some misunderstanding. So we cleaned that up, and then we removed an outdated non-workday leave buyout provision because that date is expired. So this takes an existing document you've approved, I believe, almost every year, I think, and just cleaned up some language to make sure it's tight and aligned with what our current practices are.
Board, and I obviously you had the actual draft in your documents to review. Were there any questions based on that or Dr. Whitman's? If there are no questions, so I have a motion.
I move that we approve the revised administrator fringe benefits as presented by Dr. Whitman.
It's been moved and seconded. If there's any further discussion, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed indicate by saying no. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you so much, Dr. Whitman. And now I will not skip number 6. I'll let you actually hit number 6, which is the amendment to our compensation resolution from last.
This one is a correction from our last board meeting. So I am requesting that the board approve the revised final resolution for the 25-26 administrator and classified compensation, which now accurately incorporates the necessary corrections and ensures fair and consistent compensation practices for all eligible employee groups. I did provide you with a memo that articulated what those corrections were. One was an omission of the stipend compensation calculation for administrators. We have always done that calculation and that methodology. We just neglected to include that in that resolution. And the other one was the employee groups. I think last meeting I articulated employee group 204. It should have been employee group 210. I will say these errors that were in the last resolution from last meeting have not had a negative impact on any staff. Nobody was delayed in any entitled contribution per what this resolution was. This is just to make sure the language accurately reflects the intention of that resolution from last month, and we can continue to move forward with what you have supported from our last board meeting's adoption.
Board questions? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the resolution for the 25-26 administrators and classified staff compensation from November 11, 2025, as presented by Dr. Whitman.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Whitman.
And before I sit down, may I wish you all a wonderful holiday season, since we won't see you. I won't probably see you until next year. So thank you all and have a great holiday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes our action items tonight. Information item tonight, we have a student service update. Mrs. Dodson and Mrs. Patchett.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor and members of the board. Super excited to be with you today to walk through some updates and share about school counseling here in Washington Township. Are we having slides up on the screen? Or are they following? I got it.
It's on the laptop there. Should be minimized.
Yeah, right there. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Tonight I have with me Melissa Patchett, who is the Director of School Counseling at North Central High School for the high school. So we'll be co-presenting tonight to share updates with you. So during the next few moments, here are some things we're going to be talking to you about. We're going to share about our growing school counseling team, which we're really excited about and proud of. We'll be sharing updates on roles and responsibilities of school counselors here in the district, some promising practices, how we are aligned with the gold standard of school counseling, which is the ASCA model, and what challenges we are facing in that alignment, and then also some exciting work that's on the horizon. I wanted to start off by just kind of level setting how we got to this point of being able to grow our team. So you may remember back in 2021, that was when my role as the coordinator of school counseling and student wellness, it was a different title then, but when my role began, that was in the fall of 2021. And really what I was charged with was implementing comprehensive school counseling in our secondary schools. At that time, we had a team of 24 school counselors. We had no elementary counselors. And one of my questions was, if we're really doing comprehensive school counseling, we should be starting with our youngest kids. We can't wait until middle school to really be doing school counseling if we're really following the ASCA model. So it took some time to work through some options and some opportunities for beginning this exploration. But in 2023, due to some grant funding, we were able to add school counselors at 2 of our elementary schools, Willow Lake and Fox Hill, with the school board's approval. And then after that, in 2024, we secured funding to sustain those temporary positions and add 2 more. So we were staffed at that point at half of our elementaries. And then this year, thanks to Lilly grant funding, we were able to add positions. And so we are fully staffed with school counselors at all 8 elementaries for a team of 32 school counselors. I cannot talk about school counseling without giving a quick plug, and I'm not going to read this slide to you, but I don't know if I've talked to you guys about the difference between guidance counselors and school counselors, but it really is a model that has evolved over the years. I think you can look at the slide and see more specifics, but when we think about guidance counselors, and that's probably what it was called when you were in school, I know it was when I was in school. When I was first a school counselor 15 years ago, we were called guidance counselors. We shouldn't have been, but it happened a lot more then. But it's really been a shift from reactive services with an emphasis on scheduling kids who are in crisis, who's going to talk to the kid who's crying, and college admittance, to a much more robust and comprehensive framework that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to talk more about what this actually looks like here in Washington Township. So we have the ASCA model, and we're not going to go through the nuts and bolts of all that is, but there's one model that we do modify for different developmental levels. Obviously, the work that's happening at an elementary school is very different than the work that's happening at North Central High School. So this slide, we try to help tease out for you what some of those differences are. At the elementary level, what we're seeing is a real emphasis on Tier 1 universal support for all students. That is the majority of their time is focusing on the all. So they are coordinating social emotional learning, whether it is the teacher delivered social emotional learning curriculum that happens during morning meeting and throughout the day, or their own lessons. And every school counselor at elementary is in every single classroom every month doing a lesson. So there's a huge emphasis on all. And then we are monitoring data to support where additional support is needed, whether that is academics, whether that is social emotional, doing crisis response, and really monitoring data for some data-driven Tier 2 interventions for students who need more. Middle school, you see a lot of that is similar, but we dip more into scheduling, more into planning for your future, lots of time in enrollment, and really helping students as they transition within Washington Township or to Washington Township. But you will see our middle school counselors are actually in classrooms once per quarter. That's a big shift with Tier 1 at the middle school level too. When I was first a school counselor here in Washington Township at Eastwood Middle Schools, where I got my first school counseling job, I was not in classrooms nearly once per quarter. It was much more responsive, reactive services. So we're really trying to shift to being more proactive and preventative.
When it comes to high school, Jen really hit many of the roles and responsibilities that are similar across all the grade levels, but I always like to provide some context and some numbers. So for example, when we're talking about enrollments, the counselors at the high school have processed over 300 enrollments since July. So to start the school year, we brought in 300 new students, and that is kudos to their work to welcome those new students. And we have over 250 students that have 504 plans at the high school that they coordinate. So their role is multifaceted, similar to elementary and middle school counselors. But some things that are different that I want to highlight is that they serve on student support teams. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. And they monitor student progress towards graduation, which obviously supports our goals of increasing our graduation rate, and they support students in post-secondary planning. So one of the big things we want for our Panthers is that not only are they set up to graduate and leave us, but they are set up to graduate and be successful.
We wanted to share some promising practices. I mentioned at elementary how the school counselor really is the lead in their building for social emotional learning. So we found that having them model what that looks like for teachers has been very helpful. There's an emphasis on school climate and culture that they are able to really hone in and focus on that. And early intervention has been, I think, critical as well. For middle school, we have developed a student services PLC, so professional learning community model at the middle school level that we're really proud of. That is weekly meetings, looking at student data, determining what supports are needed. And also at the middle school level, we've done some really cool work with 1-minute meetings where they meet with every single student for a minute for a short period of time, normally twice a year in the fall and the spring, where we are really helping capture that student voice to drive service delivery throughout the year.
For the high school, one thing I want to highlight is our move from grade level support teams to student support teams. So that work was really supported by Mr. Rent and him. We came in at the same time. And when we entered North Central, we heard a lot of feedback about grade level support teams. And so we heard that maybe they were not functioning in the way that we wanted them to. And so Mr. Rent gave us the green light to reimagine what student support teams might look like at North Central. The counselors went through a really lengthy process of researching counseling models and proposing them with the data to support their proposals. And in the end, we landed on our current student support team model with a dedicated freshman team that stays with freshmen, specializes in freshmen, and really gets to kind of practice and then refine the supports for freshmen. So we're really excited about that. And then an alpha split support for our students in grades 10 through 12. And that helps a lot. The 10 through 12 split helps a lot with our senior support and that graduation rate, and supporting. The other thing that was really important with this model was the support for families and not just individual students. So in grade level support teams, they stayed with the individual student all 4 years, but the way that we function with the alpha split is they will stay with a family. So siblings will get the same counselor and the same support team, and families really get to know their support teams. And we don't have, if they have siblings, we don't have multiple assistant principals and multiple counselors involved in supporting the family. It is one team to support the family, aside from that freshman year transition. So one of the biggest benefits to that model is smaller caseloads as well. And in terms of their number of students by grade level, so their number of sophomores, their number of juniors, and their number of seniors. And where that really comes into play is our 4-year and post-secondary planning. They get to spend a lot more time one-on-one with students. An example is that last year, we had 3 counselors for almost 900 seniors. And now we have 9 counselors to support the 900 seniors, almost 900 seniors. And so they get to spend more time meeting multiple times with seniors instead of trying to cycle through all those numbers of students and develop those relationships. And then another thing that I want to highlight for us is the adoption of SEL curriculum as a promising practice. That is not something that's seen at high school level very often. And we adopted that this school year after work in committee work at the high school level, where we researched and vetted different programs, and we are now implementing that. And so that's a tier 1 support for all of our students that's not really seen at the high school level. Oh yeah, sorry. And then I also wanted to talk about just things that we do on all levels that are promising practices. So again, emphasis on tier 1. That's really where we want to make sure all students are service supported and developed, so that students don't fall through the cracks. And then our data-driven practices, I think you'll see on all the levels, we're really focused on data, the use of data, goal setting, and alignment with the school improvement goals and the district strategic plan goals. And then our data flashlights, which we're gonna highlight for you, and our transition support. So a big focus on making sure our students who are transitioning to middle school feel supported, and then our students who are transitioning to the high school feel supported.
On our next slide, you will see, and I would encourage you and invite you to actually click within your slides to our school board members in the upper right-hand corner. That is a clickable link for you to see our school flashlights from the 24-25 school year. This is something that school counselors and school social workers work on collaboratively and do it at the end of the school year to really try to capture the work that they did that year. What you can see when you look at these, and there's 3 examples up here. I know they're really hard to see up on the screen. That's why if you click on them, you'll be able to see more clearly. But I think what you'll be able to capture is a sense of the work and the breadth of the work, the goals. You can see topics for classroom lessons, topics for small groups. There is a community partner spotlight that we have on this template. And this was really something that came out of some intensive professional learning that we did with our school counselors, given due to some grant funding that we were able to have a couple of years ago. And we learned about how important it is that we are actually sharing out about this work, because most often the work of school counseling, it happens behind the scenes. It's not work that a lot of people realize is happening. And so I think that these do a great job of sharing out just what is happening throughout the year. And I do want to just re-emphasize this captures the work of the school counselors and school social workers.
All right, so I wanted to dig in a little bit about what high school student support teams look like and the purpose of them. So upon implementing the student support team model, it became really clear that we needed to align our student support team practices. Because before, our student support teams, which consist of 3 counselors, an assistant principal, a dean, a social worker, usually an attendance dean, a student support specialist. So it's a big group of people that come together to look at data and support our students. And with the previous model, we still had all of those players at the table, but they functioned almost siloed into almost mini schools. So the freshman team, it didn't really impact them what was going on with the sophomore team, what was going on with the junior team. They could really just focus on decisions they were making for the freshmen at that time. And then each year they would learn, okay, now I have sophomores, now I have juniors. But in this model, our assistant principals, our deans, our social workers, our counselors, we are supporting students across multiple grade levels. So now we have 9 counselors supporting students in grades 10 through 12. So just because they're divided up in student support teams, they still need to align their practices. They need to make sure they're all on the same page. Same thing with our assistant principals. And so we established early on the need for some norming practices and some monthly meetings. So where the assistant principals come together and share best practices and just make sure that they are leading their student support teams in consistent model. The goal of the student support teams is to promote accountability at all levels and drive improved student outcomes, including graduation rate, by ensuring every student receives the appropriate interventions and resources needed to succeed. So it's all about the intervention in the student support teams. So you can see on the slide deck a short description of what happens in student support teams. So they're weekly meetings, they have a common agenda. We are looking at data constantly, identifying early warning signs for students for attendance, discipline, grades, and credits earned. And we also do student celebrations, and we do goal setting using our data aligned to our school improvement plan.
Another promising practice, one that I'm particularly excited about and excited to share about, is our school counseling leadership team. This is something that started a couple of years ago, and the purpose really is to ensure that some of this decision-making that happens about school counseling, it involves those who are closest to the work. And so these are a group of folks, a group of counselors who meet quarterly, and we really are charged with, they are charged with helping to implement the comprehensive school counseling program district-wide. They also serve as mentors for new school counselors, and it really nurtures them and their leadership abilities. So because of them, we've been able to get things done like revising the school counselor rubric in a way that happened very quickly. We've been able to create a school counseling program model where every school counselor in the district is implementing the ASCA model, which is something several years ago I was very overwhelmed with thinking about how do I bring that to scale. And so they've done some really great work to grow school counseling here in the district. I also will just name that collaboration with school social work team is another promising practice. This has been something that Crystal Haslett and I have worked on very closely over the years. We have felt very strongly that it's important that we have a cohesive web of support for students, but it's also really important that we're not duplicating service. We don't bring in additional roles so that we're all doing the same things. The idea is that we are having a much greater reach, and we are really clearly delineating between who should be doing what. There's always going to be a little overlap, but with a high level of collaboration with the school social work team, I think we've gotten pretty good at this.
So just to kind of look through how we aligned to the American School Counselor Association, really the big piece here is the successes we have in alignment have to do with the standards that ASCA sets for us. So our counseling program models in Washington Township schools follow those national standards for school counselors. And that, I would say, is probably our biggest success, which Jen just mentioned, is that we have implemented across the district K-12 the national standard for school counseling. Another success is our Tier 1 action plan. So making sure that our students receive support that is both proactive and preventative. So the more work that we can do at Tier 1, the more that we can do, or the better supported our students are, which decreases our number of students who need those Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions and supports. Another success that we have is that our data focus aligns with our school improvement plans and district strategic plan, which I mentioned. But the big thing here is just that we don't want anyone to see school counseling as an add-on. It is an integral part of the school. It is integral to meeting our school improvement plan goals and our district strategic plans. And that work that we do is important and relevant to all of that. Some challenges we've experienced along the way have to do with just shared commitment for counselors and administrators. When you think about there's 31 school counselors and 2 counselor administrators, the leadership must be shared. We can't do it all, and we need our school counselors to really step up to the plate and share in wanting to implement the national model. And so we do a lot of coaching up and encouraging for continued growth and refinement in their practices, and to see that this is needed. And then also in the shared commitment from school administrators, especially when we think about how they use their counselors, where they have them allocated and spending their time, and what are appropriate roles and responsibilities. And this requires us to establish buy-in and education of our school administrators on what the role of the school counselor is and how they can use them most effectively to meet those goals that they want to meet. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why I think our roles exist, is to kind of connect the two, like connect the counselors to the administrators. And lastly, I would say we talk a lot about tier one, and we have made a lot of gains in tier one supports, but a lot of our time is spent being reactive. And so we just have a high level of student need and students in crisis and having to respond, classroom lessons that have to get set aside because there's a student crisis, or scheduling that has to get set aside because of students in crisis. So the tier one supports are often what give when we are having to respond and react at a high level.
Finally, just want to touch on a couple things on the horizon that we're looking forward to. So Melissa mentioned that our school counseling program model is aligned with the ASCA model. I will tell you, if you go around to school districts in Indiana, outside of Indiana, it's going to be pretty rare that you see a school district that has alignment and actual ASCA implementation across their schools. It's really pretty rare, I would say, because it's pretty rigorous. It's not like if I'm teaching that we're sticking with the Indiana state standards. That would be like a baseline expectation. Implementing the ASCA model is much more than a baseline expectation. I would just kind of say that just so that for your awareness. We do have 7 schools that are going above and beyond what all the schools are doing, and they're pursuing Indiana's Carrying the Torch to Student Success designation. The 2-year program, these 7 schools started this year. They will wrap up, and it includes North Central High School. They will wrap up at the end of the 26-27 school year, but that is a designation in the state of Indiana there's reciprocity with Carrying the Torch to RAMP, and RAMP stands for Recognize ASCA Model Program. So that is a really cool designation, something we're really excited about. A lot of work is going into that, but excited to see where we go with that. I will tell you that we certainly have a goal of being just a model district for comprehensive school counseling and just student services in general. When we think about the other roles, school social work and things like that in Indiana and nationally. And I think that some of that is coming to fruition. We are presenting at the National School Counseling Leadership Conference in February, and that is our school counseling and school social work leadership teams presenting there about this work. And then some other things that are exciting is we're continuing to refine our work, continuing to look at how we do college and career readiness in a way that's developmentally appropriate, pre-K really to 12, and further support our students' social emotional well-being and academic success, obviously, because that is what we're here to do, is educate students. What questions do you have?
Does everybody have questions? I know I have a few written down. All
Okay,
right.
let's go.
Let's go down the line and start with Mr. Turner and then just go.
So mine are more of a, wow, thank you for this presentation. It's really good to have it here so we can see it after you guys leave, so we'll be able to go back to it. Mine is really an overall question of how you've grown, how we've been able to grow the number of school counselors over time. And my question is pretty broad, but you've done a lot of great work of what you have. In a world based on our student population, the work that you're doing now, what would you say is kind of a aspirational goal of the number of school counselors that would make your life even a little easier and the students a little better?
Well, the American School Counselor Association, the recommended ratio that they put out there is 1 to 250. So 1 school counselor to 250 students. Our ratios at the secondary level are not bad. Our ratios are around 1 to 300, give or take. In our middle schools that are a little larger than that, it's higher. And so secondary is pretty good. I will say elementary, it was a win just to get elementary school counselors to start with. Obviously, their ratios are pretty high. They're nowhere near the 1 to 250. As we have a school social worker and a school counselor in our elementaries, I tend to think of it as kind of those are 2 roles. And so if we have a school of 600, which some of our elementaries are, and we have those 2 student services roles, we get close to 1 to 300 there too. So I think that we're staffed at a pretty good level. I think it would be asking a lot to say, let's get more elementary counselors. I think we just need to get really good at what we're doing. I don't know from a staffing level, honestly, if more counselors are needed. I think we need continued refinement. I think some of our counselors need additional coaching on how to really do what we're asking of them well. because it is a little different than the ask in some other places.
Thank you.
Ms. Lakuta?
So I heard the word that is a blessing and a curse a couple times, grants, funded by grants. So I'm curious about or thinking about the long-term sustainability of this and what support is needed to make sure that this level that we're at right now does not diminish, that it grows.
I think I actually go back to Mr. Turner's question. What's my dream? That is my dream, is that we're able to sustain this beyond the Lilly funding. And so you speak to that, Mrs. Worth-Kruger. I would say what we know about the ASCA model is that we cannot just say, look at these numbers and look at all of these lessons we're doing in these small groups that we're running and all of this. We have to be able to demonstrate and articulate how students are different as a result of the work. And that is what comprehensive school counseling is all about. And so I really attribute, that's how we've been able to grow, is we've been able to show this is how students are different as a result of these roles. And so that is the work that we'll continue to do, and would love to continue to share out that progress with you as we go. But I think as long as we are demonstrating, my hope is that as long as we are demonstrating the positive outcomes, not just that we're busy and we're doing all of these things, but that student outcomes are better, that's where it's at. And that's what I'll continue to work on. Is there anything you would add? I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it's just scary, you know, when you
It is.
have something that's so wonderful and has already established itself as being good, but the potential is so tremendous. You know, we just all have to be paying attention to how we can work to continue this and keep it moving forward. So keep us in the loop on that, you know, because that's, it's just wonderful what you're doing, and it is proving, it does have results already. So congratulations.
Thank you.
My question is kind of more technical. So I heard that you guys said at the high school level, because of the student support teams, you guys are able to get families together. So do you guys like go out of your way, like, because there's lots of families that don't necessarily have the same last name. So how does that work?
Yeah, we have said that if a family has different last names, we would work with making sure they had the same student support team.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. That's all.
So they took my two questions, but I actually have more of what I hope is a fun question. I heard you say that you basically were speed dating the middle school students with the 1 minute.
Yes.
I'm curious to know what that, tell me a little more about that.
You know, it's something.
You go in to have your 1 minute and you say what?
So basically what our practice has been, and we've been doing this for years. I used to do it when I was a middle school counselor, and Mr. Kaiser was my principal at the time. Basically what you do, what the practice is we take a cart, we stand outside of a classroom, we teach the class before we start. You guys are going to pop out and you get a little flow going, and we really try to figure out what information do we want, where do we need student voice in our school. So we're going to work with our building administration. We're going to maybe look at our panorama data and say, what do we need to dig deeper on to get to the root of that? Maybe panorama is hinting at some stuff, but we need to figure out some more specifics. Some of the favorite questions that I think that we ask are, we always ask, not always, a lot of times we ask students, do you have a go-to adult at school?
Right.
And we track that. We report out to teachers then, these are the kids who said they don't have a go-to adult. And let's figure that out. Let's put our heads together, because students should not be saying that. I've seen our middle school counselors have done, because we've been doing it for a while, they do an excellent job with this. I just observed one of our middle school counselors a couple months ago, and she was reporting on how she asked the same questions, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And so she was able to track this group of students and how they responded to some of these questions over time. And the data really improved on some of their responses on things based on the supports that they were able to put in place as a result of gathering this feedback from students. So I think it's really a promising practice. We see it happen in some of our elementaries too. It's a little hard to implement at high school, such a large high school. But yeah, it's super fun.
And then my other question, I was trying to find the slide where you said it, so I didn't say the wrong thing, but you said that you were doing a lot of, this is my word, crisis management. And so I have a 2020 grad, right? And a lot of what his counselor did was the old days. It was literally just, we're doing your schedule. And that was the only contact he had. But he wasn't sped and he wasn't a high achiever. So he just kind of got lost in the fray. And so if we're still in kind of handling the crisis management, and I see that the model is to reach all students, I'm curious to know just some of the things that we're doing to make sure that these kids the middle isn't getting lost.
Yeah. And I think that your point is really well taken. I think that's really what drives us. That one of the sticking points is it's hard to get to the universal tier 1 stuff when you're putting out the fires. And that's just a reality that we've had to maneuver. I think that part of it is administrator education and helping them to understand why that tier 1 universal, some of those things are so important, and that maybe you don't need to pull the counselor for that one little thing. Maybe can you wait until they're done with their lesson? I will tell you some shifts that have happened. We do have this tier 1 action plan, and we do what is called franchised curriculum across the district. I'm a big believer. It shouldn't be a lottery that you get to go to this one school that's got this great counselor and a great school counseling program. We should have a consistently high quality experience across the district. So we have developed curriculum that is consistent across all 8 elementary schools, that is consistent across all 3 middle schools. This is our first year implementing this tier 1 action plan, and it's at the high school as well. And it is, like I said, middle school counselors are in classrooms 4 times a year at least. Your student, any student, all students should be interfacing with their counselor in a lesson format, in addition to gathering feedback during minute meetings. Elementary, they're in there every month, quarterly for high school as well. And so I think that is one thing that I think, Melissa, you've had to be very creative on how to make that happen. It's always a challenge because obviously class time, instructional time is really important too. But I think we've also gotten a lot of feedback from teachers that when we do this, teachers are like, oh, this is legitimate. And that's been part of our training and part of our approaches. We can't go in and take class time and do a lesson that's subpar. Like if we are going to be using instructional time, we need to be really making the most of it and having the impact. And so I think generally when we go into classrooms, teacher response is pretty good, and they see the alignment between what the content that we're providing, what we are teaching, and what students need, and what they're seeing present in classrooms and schools.
I would just add that for the high school level, I think this goes back to that advocacy piece with the administrators. So I, from last year to this year, even have seen just higher collaboration as I've developed more relationships with administrators, specifically our department chairs. And as I've been able to kind of get out in front of things, be more proactive, come to them early to say, hey, I need to get into your English classrooms to implement this lesson. Let's work together to find a good time in the pacing and PLC work that you're doing for us to come into the classroom. And I think a lot of that proactive work and a lot of that advocacy work has made a difference, even just from last year, my first year, to this year. And so our support has been higher from our teachers, from our administrators, in terms of being able to get into the classroom. And so we are, which is abnormal. I keep saying this is not normal for a large high school, but it is not normal for a large high school for us to go in quarterly. We've completed a freshman lesson and a sophomore lesson already this school year, and we have our junior lesson and our senior lesson keyed up, and that's not including our scheduling lessons. It's not including our senior classroom lesson we do at the beginning of the year that talks about all things, college going. And so we really do get a lot of tier 1 time at the high school level. So I can't complain, and that I am very grateful for the collaboration I have at the high school level.
I think, but to your point, just circling back to the students in crisis, you're always going to have that. I think that we've gotten better at tag teaming with our partners. So in a larger high school, if there are certain counselors that are going into classrooms, others know that they may need to fill in as needed. The other thing I would tell you is some of this tier 1, these classroom lessons, but also tier 2 groups, they're able to happen more quickly because we have prepared content and we have prepared lessons. I know when I was a school counselor, that was one of the things I always had a hard time finding the time to write the lesson, write the small group curriculum, figure out what I'm doing, because my days are filled with seeing students and doing all the things that was the thing that always seemed to fall off. So we've also prepared our people. They've got their stuff ready to go at the ready, and they're ready to implement. So I think we're trying to kind of break down some barriers that maybe have existed previously, but it's definitely a work in progress.
Okay, I got a list. All right.
Okay.
Good, I promise. The first one to follow up on some of the questions about grants. So, I mean, the 8 elementary funded by the Lilly, I know that Lilly money was a very, specific pot. I mean, does that run out at the end of this year? Is there enough there to pay?
We have 5 years.
Oh, okay.
5 years. Yes.
Thank you. That's real.
So we're good for 5.
And also,
really great.
I can answer that too. We built into that Lilly plan the sustainability of operating referendum dollars for that. So as I have communicated to several different constituency groups, is these services are outstanding, but they're not free. And these are things we're doing in addition to the traditional model of education so that we can design the box around the needs of the student versus making the student fit in the box, right? And so they're not free. That's why we've been aggressively pursuing grants. We've been aggressively and strategically utilizing our funds so that we can beef up counseling and school social workers and all that so that we can have these services for our students, which is why we can boldly set goals like we've set in our strategic plan, because we have these supports in our schools for our families and our students. And to Ms. George Davis's point regarding middle, the reason why we stress connection or connected is so that who's on my child's team, right? Who's on my child's student support team? Many of us went to school, we didn't know that. We didn't even know a student support team existed or a student services team existed. And so we're trying to do a better job of flashlighting that, if you will, or showcasing that so you know immediately. That's the initiative behind the Panther Family Guide, if you will, to come in and know right away, this is who's on my child's team. And when this is what they do, and this is how I access them and vice versa. So that's part of the connected part of the strategic plan.
Thank you. Okay, this one, you struck a nerve with me on your elementary slide where you had a bullet about developmentally appropriate college and career readiness. And that struck a nerve because, to quote my dear friend, Kathy Fuentes Rower, in her testimony at the State House some years ago, she said, my child is not college and career ready because they are a child. And that resonated with so many people. And I have great trust in you that it is developmentally appropriate, but I am curious, when we talk about college and career readiness at elementary, talk to me about what that actually looks like. Rather than what some people maybe at the State House think it looks like forcing kids into apprenticeships when they're in 4th grade.
I will say that the Commission for Higher Education put out this career coaching framework, and it does span K to 12 and beyond 12, obviously. I will say I find most of what they built out for the elementary years to be pretty developmentally appropriate, and that it is really just about exploration. And so when we look at what this looks like at elementary for us, it is basically employability skills, which are often social emotional learning skills. How do we get along with other people? How do we function in this world? Also, what's a job? What's a career? I will tell you one of my favorite, if you walk at Willow Lake, their school counselor, she's been she was one of our first elementary school counselors. On their screens in the building, this is just a very simple thing. She's got just a like career of the week where there's like a picture about it, a couple cool facts. It's really just about helping kids to understand the options in the world from a really early age. Because for me, I wanted to be a teacher because I had a great teacher and I did not really realize that there were other careers out there, if I'm being fully honest. I don't know if I would have been a teacher actually after all if I would have fully explored my options, but I had very limited understanding of what my options were. And so it's about just helping students understand what's out there. And there's some really cool hands-on stuff that we're doing too. At the ELC, we have built out at the ELC, it is play-based learning. So we are pretending to work in a little store and things like that. I really believe that play-based learning is important even beyond ELC. Kids should be kids. And so please know, I would love to talk to you more about that sometime, but I definitely hear you.
Cool. Thank you. Next question. You talked a lot about being data-driven, which obviously is a huge thing in this district. And I think we hear about it in academic settings and it makes, it's like, oh, we have all these assessments, whatever. But then I think about all the things you're talking about and it's like, well, that's a whole nother beast. So my question is, what is feeding your data? And I know a lot of it is Skyward because I know it's in Skyward. And I heard a little bit of an answer. I mean, down to the level of these, you're asking every individual student. But I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about, how are you generating your data? And, do you feel like you have the right tools? You don't have the iLearn benchmark or the iLearn tests, right? You're pulling stuff from Skyward on attendance and you're doing this and that. So, I mean, how do you feel like that's going? And do you feel like you're able to find the data you need in a digestible format?
I do think we have access to data. I mean, you're right. We have lots of data at our disposal. We have a great platform for that called Power BI that all of our counselors have access to, which is awesome. ASCA really has a huge emphasis on academic data. And so ultimately, as school counselors, there's lots of contributing factors, but ultimately we want students to be successful in school. And so there is an emphasis on academic data, which is similar to what we're looking at for school improvement plans, district strategic plan, graduation rates, iLearn, all of that. We also are looking at discipline data because we want to be proactive. So if we see students who have struggled with certain aspects of discipline, they're earning referrals, we want to then provide support. We know that just suspending a student is not solving the problem. They need most likely some skill development. So we're going to look at some discipline data. We're going to look at attendance data. A great example I'll give you, and one practice that I'm proud of that we have going is, for example, with attendance. If we try to apply the same intervention to every kid who's not coming to school, we are going to miss the mark. We have got to get to the root cause. Are you not coming to school because you are anxious and you're refusing to come to school? Are you not coming to school because there is a basic need issue and you're staying with somebody else and there's not a ride? Are you not coming to school because of an academic issue? So we've got some great tools and kind of like further assess, like needs assessments that we utilize to really drill down into some of these areas to figure out what is at the root so that then we can address that. So we're really trying to individualize supports because we know, for example, if kids are behaving, they're able to stay in class, they're going to learn. If they are able to show up to school, they are more likely to be learning. And so those are kind of what we call contributing factors that are going to affect academics.
Awesome. All right. And then my last things is one is kind of a suggestion / kudo, and then another kudo. The first one is the kudo is and maybe it's mainly because I have a senior, but your grade level communications have greatly improved. And that's so helpful. But like you said something about, you were talking about your classroom lessons and things. And like, gosh, when you're doing those classroom lessons with the seniors, you're doing so much better than you used to in terms of communicating that to parents. But the more we can do, because you guys know, parents are constantly like, why isn't this school giving my kid any guidance? And why, I don't know anything about what's going on with graduation. And it's like, ask your kid, they're a senior. But also, I think you guys have come a long way with that in a short period of time. And I would just encourage you, keep communicating to parents these things that you're doing, because they don't realize how much support their kids actually are getting. And I think there are some parents whose beliefs are not quite up to date on what is actually going on in terms of their student support. So
That's great.
kudos, and keep it coming even more with that communication. And then my last kudos is just, now that I was a senior and it's 4 years at North Central, it's been a sea change. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. As Miss Patchett knows, I have had to reach out to my support team for my child. And it's just a kudos to you, feeling like I actually have someone I can reach out to and who will rally around my kid. I feel that much more strongly now than I did a few years back. So another kudos on that. That's all I have. Any last minute questions that came up during the questions?
Good job.
All right, I'll finally let you sit down. Thank you.
I love Power BI.
No. Oh, yeah. Slide 4.
All right. Well, while you read slide 4, you guys are done. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Really nicely done. Appreciate it. Okay, so that moves us to the end of our agenda, which is just our special events and liaison reports. Since we went down the row, starting with Mr. Turner, let's stick with it. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Turner. Just go down the row.
Yeah, so we did have the community coalition meeting a couple weeks ago. And basically what Dr. Pettigrew and Mrs. Haslett led the team through was updates around some of the things around the district. So for example, Mrs. Seibert shared all the good things happening in True North, which the community members, a lot of them didn't know some of that. So it was really, had a lot of positive response from what Mrs. Seibert shared. But then they really just focused in on the rest of the meeting of the Panther guide, the guide for the high school, and getting their input. And it was really a robust, matter of fact, the meeting went over because they're so involved in the conversation and giving great examples and ideas on how to change that guide or create that guide. And so Dr. Pettigrew and team are going to take that back, obviously, and we'll see where it goes. But a very good meeting for the group. That's all.
Well, I was one of the 3 that spent some time at West Lane Middle School, and that was really delightful. And I know everybody has comments, but I just will say that in my 2 classes, we talked a lot, we just basically went over all of the information about running for school board and what a school board does. But then I was asking them, like, what do you like about West Lane? What challenges you about West Lane? And we focused on the challenges and what would their solutions to be to address them. So we had some really good, thoughtful conversation about it. Some of them had some really great ideas. Some of them don't like the lunch, and some of them don't like we got a lot of that, which is what you would think. Some of them, I shared what my favorite color is. And I mean, it was fun. It was just delightfully fun, but it was good. Some really good thinkers, and I appreciated the opportunity.
I joined, so North Central is having a freshman social in January. And so I joined that committee, and I'm going to help with that. So that's exciting. That was a meeting that happened. I also, encouragement of President Fry, joined the Blast Off committee. So I'm going to help with Blast Off, which is for seniors this year. And I'm the food co-chairperson. So I'm going to work with some some local restaurants to try to get some food donated for Blast Off. So that was exciting. That happened this week too. I did West Lane. West Lane was a lot of fun. 6th graders asked if they could have, I should have told Mr. Pickock if they could have recess again. I told them that was something that
always comes up.
But that was a lot of fun, really. Me and Ms. George Davis did like a joint classroom session and talked about like what a majority was and how like decision making happens at this local level. So it was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. Also went to Bash. Bash was a really good time. And then finally, Monday, I attended the ISBA Advocacy Series. So they are encouraging local school board members to get involved in the advocacy efforts. For those who are online or listening, our legislative session started very early this year, and we are going to be tackling, I'm sure, some interesting legislation that'll come up from our legislative. So.
I am the third of the board members who went to West Lane. I actually had the privilege of being with DLI students. So I got to use some of my Spanish, which was, they actually were helping me because I was like, wait, did I say that right? And I can't remember her name, but she was sitting up front because that was her sister that was honored at West Lane. And she and I had a great conversation. The things that my students went above from the paper, they wanted to know, we had the lunch conversation too. And then some of them wanted to know if they could come to board meetings because one of the questions was about student voice and how the board elevates student voice. And I started telling them about public comment. And so they thought board meetings were during the day and they could get out of school to come to board meetings. But when I told them that it was at 7 o'clock at night, one of them said, oh, well, maybe I don't have to have my bedtime that night and I can get my mom to bring me. So they were trying to get me to condone not following mom's rules. And wanting to know why they had to have milk instead of juice at lunch. So I told them to email Dr. Taylor on that one.
Email the federal government on that
right.
one.
Yeah, I explained that milk was kind of a thing and that we would not probably be serving juice, but still email Dr. Taylor. And so that was really fun. West Lane's a special place in my heart. And so I was really honored to be asked to do that. No policy meeting. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. That was it for me.
I actually have not been in any of the buildings the last couple of weeks. Been very busy, just some behind the scenes stuff, collaborating with Dr. Taylor on some various legal policy, whatever issues. And speaking of policy, I need to grab a couple of you for a very impromptu policy meeting right after this. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. I think that is it then. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.